Radio Rahim with Johnny Nelson. We are kicking off fight week for Eubank, Benn. It is finally here. You see the red carpet. You see the step and repeat behind me. Behind this wall is a massive event about to kick off. The massive fight in the UK. We've been waiting for this fight, maybe since the second fight of Eubank Sr. and Nigel Benn, not knowing what the next chapter would be. They thought maybe there'd be a third one. This is as close to a third one as we're ever going to get.
Well, it's quite a soap opera, isn't it? You know, we're looking at the sons, we're looking at the fathers, and there's performances happening backstage, front stage, and you're looking at the relationship between all of them. And it's funny that Nigel seems to try and be the peacemaker in regards to the father-son relationship with Chris Sr. and Chris Jr. I see Conor's a young lion. And he's like, you know what? You should be like us. It must be hard for Junior seeing father and son working in a team together. But I reckon he put those shutters down on his dad a long time ago, because I think stuff that's going on, that's personal business in the Eubank household, and it's just spilling out into us. So when it comes to boxing, we can talk boxing, but when it comes to the personal issues that are going on, that's a Eubank thing. So they got to sort out.
You can't help but think quite a bit about the personal issues, especially if you're a grown man, you got family yourself, and you understand how relationships can sever and sour. But early in the career, when I was covering Eubank Jr., it was always Senior there. He was always on top of everything, and I didn't see Nigel Benn. In fact, do you remember the press conference where Senior said to Conor Benn, "Oh, I'll be your father. I'll look after you."
So you've got to understand. So Nigel's based in Australia. He understands his son's career had to start off, but he couldn't hold his son's hand all the way through his career, because when you get into the world of boxing, you've got to come to boxing and think, right, you know what, I've got to stand on my own. It's like going away to be a sparring partner in, I don't know, some Eastern Bloc country. You've got to go by yourself to make you want it, or not just to do it because everybody else did. So I think what Nigel did there with Conor saying, Conor, if you want it, son, you got to show me you want it. And Conor's shown it to the point where he wants it that much. He doesn't need his dad. Now his dad is living vicariously through his son. I think for Chris and Senior and Junior, what has happened is, the father, he's living trying to live vicariously through his son, and his son is saying, "Dad, you know what? Yeah, bad man." He said, "Come here, man. You good?
How you doing, man?
I'm all right, man. All right. Look at those shoulders, man.
Working, definitely putting the work in.
You see, I couldn't fight these boys when I was young enough. That's pure meat, that.
Yeah, but some people say the era is different. You know, the mindset is different. What do you think about the era that Johnny Nelson comes from? Could you have whooped them in that time?
Hey, listen, work is work. Back then, I think they were all around harder than we are, but I think I'm one just like him. So.
He's gonna grow old just like me.
We see Tyson in the ring come back. You know, this might be the beginning of the build.
No, that's not gonna happen. I got sense. Them guys are done. I'm not into that. But yeah, what we're saying is in regards to Senior and Junior, the fact that Junior is making his own path in life. Senior made his path. I was around when Senior was fighting, and Senior was doing a lot of things in his career. We're thinking, what the hell's he doing? What? And so people didn't agree with how he conducted certain aspects of his career. He could see the path that he wanted to make. He's trying to make his son use his path, and his son is saying, no, let me make my own mistakes, create my own experiences to get my own wisdom. So these guys are like loggerheads at the moment, but eventually they're going to be back in again. Eventually, you know, when the career's over. You know, but at the moment he's had to put the shutters down on his dad, because he's saying, "Dad, you know what? I'm making my own path. Leave me be."
The debate comes in which is the right way to go as a father who wants your son to follow in your own footsteps. Yes, clearly you can let your son have a wide berth and prove to you that he wants it and be his own man and all that. But in that time, it's ironic to me that Ben is now giving Junior such a hard time, because they were saying the same thing to him.
Yeah, okay. So now Nigel is there with his son to watch his son, to observe his son. Nigel isn't really hands-on. Nigel might give him a few words of wisdom from when he boxed, but Nigel's not coaching his son. Nigel's not producing his son. Nigel's happy to be up close and personal, got a ringside seat watching his son operate. He's out of it, and he's let his son get on with his thing, and he praises his son. So it's not saying my son does this, I tell him to do this. You've never heard Nigel say he's the coach, he's the one that guides his son, he's the one that's like, he's proud of his son.
That's true.
With Chris wants to be the orchestrator in this, and he wants to do that because he understands his way works for him. He's got to understand that everybody's like him. Chris is he's got a wise head on his shoulder, and that's what experience gives you, wisdom. Unfortunately, he's got to have the wisdom to let his son create his own path.
Is there a philosophy that says Nigel Benn, of course he's involved because he loves his son, but the other thing is Nigel Benn also needs this win. Chris Eubank Sr. is happy with the way history has played out.
That's an ego thing. That's an ego thing. That's all it is. Secretly, Nigel be thinking, I want my son to deal with your son. But I think, we're mature now. We've grown up. And he'll think, I want my son to win. But as long as both kids come out healthy, that's the important thing. Of course, it'll burn inside. And you know what? Nigel found God. But I bet you said to him now, you and Chris fight. And he's like, yes, let's have it. He's switching her heart. So he's trying to stay on the path of righteousness to say, this ain't me anymore. I've let that life go. And that's why with his son, he stands back, let his son get on with it. Chris can't do that with his son. He's either in or he's out. And his son's saying, Dad, you've got to be out there because you can't come in and tell everybody what I'm doing. And that's unfortunately the problem.
As we step away from the pop psychology on my part, trying to figure out what is in the mind of these men, there has to be a conversation about what Senior is raising beyond the relationship with his son. The issues that he's raising, he is the man on one of them on which this promotion is built. He's been in the ring. He was walking with Michael last week, who has devastating injuries that have succumbed because of boxing, and he is making a point that this weight differential is dangerous. I
understand that, but you also understand historically in boxing that you have fighters that have been 5-weight world champions. They've jumped up and up in the weights. They've navigated through the weights. I remember seeing Conor. It was around the time the Queen died. We had the show at the O2, and it was an old girls show at the O2, and Conor just happened to be there with his girlfriend, I think. But I saw Conor there, and he looked huge, looked massive. Now, what I'm saying is, fighters when they fight a certain weight, I used to be able to get down to cruiserweight, but I didn't walk around at cruiserweight but I could get down to cruiserweight, so I was the biggest cruiserweight in it. If I could fight a stone above it, would have been really comfortable for me, but there wasn't a weight division there. I don't think this weight issue is going to be the bigger issue that everybody's making out. And I actually don't think Chris is that much of a struggle for Chris, because Chris wouldn't have agreed to it. Because Chris could have said, whatever he wanted, he's got whatever he wants to get paid. Everything he's asked for, he's got, because he knows the public want it enough. So if they've come to this point with the weight, he'll say, yeah, I'm struggling weight. It's going to be really, really hard. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. But it won't until we see them on the scales, you'll be able to assess and think, wow, you know what, you've trimmed down, but there's no muscle there. I could get you down to 2 stone, but you won't be able to tie your shoelaces. So if you get down to the weight, that's cool, but you've got to be able to get down the weight safely, physically, so you can defend yourself, in combat. So we won't be able to tell which way this fight's going to go until they step on the scales and we see it with our own eyes.
Of course, the weight issue is going to be a constant bit of conversation because of the 2 weight classes between the men. But that's not the only advantage that Eubank has. I struggle to find, other than the will and maybe youth, a little bit of advantage in youth that Ben has. On paper, where can he find his advantages?
You know what? I don't know. It's styles make fights. Styles make fights, and their styles are, both of them are very, very fit young men. You saw Junior against Smith in the last fight, in the second fight against Smith. He absolutely shellacked him. Carl Froch told me, said his engine's mad. It's ridiculous, but so is Conor's. So you've got 2 young men, and Conor's the younger of the 2. You've got 2 young men that will lift their game to its highest for this fight. Chris is saying this is the biggest fight in my career. I'm surprised he actually said that. He's saying this is the biggest fight in my career. Why is he saying that?
Probably because if he loses it, it has the most deficit, but there's not much to be gained.
But if I was Chris, I wouldn't give him that props. I'd just say it's a tough fight, but I fought better. I'd drop stuff like that, but he's saying this is the hardest fight in my career. That means he's harder than the Gale, Groves, and all that. I'm like, what? That's how you look at it. He understands the dangers of this fight. I think losing for Chris will be career-ending. He'll never be able to get over it, no matter what. He won't be able to get over it. For Conor has an excuse. I jumped up 2 ways. I can live. I can get with it.
We'll give Conor the excuse. The fans would probably forgive him. However, he was going to get some stick for the fall off of his performance if he really gets battered out there. But can he personally accept that this man that probably in his mind represents everything he hates in the world and every bit of stick he's ever taken, he's going to put on that opponent as the catalyst for. Could he wake up on the 27th as a defeated fighter and had fallen to Chris Eubank Jr.?
They had a polygram for both fighters, asking them what they thought of the fight. And both fighters passed the polygram, saying, do you think you're really going to win? Yes. You know, you can't get in the ring, even considering losing. You even considering it being possible. And this is what make great champions. There's not many champions in the world that are classed as world champions that I really, really believe they're the world champion. These two fighters really and truly, doesn't matter what we think, really and truly believe they are better than the other one. And that's why this fight is so intriguing, because one must be able to see the way of beating the other. And see it possible. So it doesn't matter what we think. We don't know what happens behind closed doors. We don't know who Conor sparring with. We don't know who Chris is sparring with. When you get what you want to find is a mutual sparring partner sparring with both of them. That's the person you should be questioning.
We're 2-3 rounds into the fight.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting next to Johnny Nelson. If I were so blessed, what are you leaning over to me saying, oh, that's how I know this fight is going well for Ben, or that's how I know this fight is going well for
the first
Chris?
6 rounds actually suit Chris because of the weight, because they'll put a bit of time, but then getting the weight down, that will the effect of that will show after 6 rounds, and the pace of the fight. Conor's got to make sure he puts pace on this fight, because if he's not in control of the pace, he loses. He's got to make sure he's got to put pace on this fight, and then the second half of the fight is more dangerous for Chris, because all that weight drain and all what he's working on, that's where his energy levels are going to deplete the second half of the fight. And that's why I think I can't see Conor winning on points. I can see him. I know you're thinking, can he knock him out? But if it gets past the second half of the fight and he keeps the pace on, that's where the fun's going to start.
Now, for us behind the scenes, and for some people who are really invested in the sport, there's also a bit of a matchup between the promoters. We've seen a bit of back and forth between Hearn and Shalom, and just recently on the weekend, this whole thing with Shalom and Queensberry and Frank Warren and the rounds and all this. It seems like, Shalom has been up against it as a promoter, and they are really kind of putting it on him.
Pulling his pants down in the middle of the schoolyard, that's what they're doing. But you know what? I'm old enough to remember Frank when he first came on the scene. Know the stories, how the doors were shutting on him, and how the cartel tried to shut him out. I remember when Eddie first came on the scene, Frank was trying to do it to Eddie. Now Benn's come on the scene. These guys they've got to go through it. It's like the baptism of fire. But sometimes Ben makes it a little too easy for them, and that's why. So that's a different show. That's a different bit of entertainment, but it's pure madness.
Last weekend, do you think that the performance from Whittaker answered all the questions? And is the whole round issue still a bit telling about how they felt about him going into the fight?
I'll not change my tune. The rounds issue was not a Ben Whittaker problem. This was a Ben Shalom problem.
But could Ben have not just we're not paying that money. Take the 12. What do I care?
Yeah, he could have done. But he's like, why should I? Ain't my problem. I'm a fighter. This is what I'm doing. Your mistake. It's your mistake. This is business. You know what I mean? It's your mistake, because there might be if he'd have got involved in the negotiations, then he might have had to drop someone. He's like, that's not my problem. This is your problem. It's not going to affect my person. It ain't going to affect anything to do with me. You got to deal with that. So when people are trying to make it reflect on Ben, every fighter that fights, they can box. If they're going to do 8 rounds, 10 rounds, 12 rounds, every fighter knows if they're fit enough to do it. I don't think the rounds are an issue. I just think, it's him saying, this isn't my problem.
Yeah, and inside of 2 rounds, obviously, a one-sided battering, yet the emotional content of the post-fight and the press conference. I mean, first of all, he runs across the ring, he shouts at Grant, then he's bawling in the press conference.
He was bawling because this affected him emotionally and personally, because he'd neglected his career. Let's just put some meat on the bones. When you've got these young stars jumping from the amateurs to the pros, and you're giving them a big signing on fee, so they're buying a flash car, they're buying all the jewelry, they're opening of a crisp packet everywhere. All of a sudden, their focus on what got them there in the first place, the preparation, is gone. So this is what happened to Ben. So Ben's a star now. He's like, blab, blab. He's like living the life. He's not, when he's going in the gym, he's saying, I'll do 15 rounds today. I'll do 5 rounds today because I've got a little gig to go to later on. He's calling the shots because it's giving him a false sense of reality to say, you know, this is what my life's going to be. And then when he almost got turned over from a Yorkshire boy from Sheffield, very matter of fact, he had a reality check. What's going on here? So all these friends, that's boxing, all these friends that are slapping you in the back telling you're brilliant, they disappear. All these people that are telling you you're great, you know, they're booing you. Ben got in the ring in Birmingham in his hometown. They booed him. I went like, what is going on? He got criticised, no matter what, got hammered. And I don't care how stony-faced you are, and if you show the public or not, what happens is when that is piled on you constantly for 6 months and you're doubting yourself, it made him go to Ireland and train right and do what he's done to show his talent. And that was frustration in himself because he was jumping about like he won a world title. It wasn't about Liam Cameron, it was about himself to say, yes, I can do it, I've showed you all. Because he was asking questions of himself, wow, really, what am I doing? But now he's shown if he trains, he gets it done right. Same thing happened to David Haye. David Haye was a party boy. He's playing everywhere. And then he went in with Carl Thompson for 10th professional fight and got knocked out. Went back, licked his woman, thought, all right, I'm not doing that again. Ended up being cruiserweight and the heavyweight champion.
I heard a lot of criticism of Benn Whittaker having run over to the corner and kind of showed up Grant in the trainer and, you know, I guess he yelled in his face. I didn't see anything kind of spit, so I don't believe he spit on him. I couldn't find anything in the tape that said that. So he was really just talking shit.
Yeah, well, of course, that's frustration. But that one's unfortunate.
But is that a problem?
It's not a problem. It's you and him. Okay, you know when, I'll give you an example. Dave Caldwell, I was working with him on the night and he said it wasn't classy. And Dave Caldwell, I remember when Tony Bellew knocked out McGarble, Dave Caldwell jumped in the ring to celebrate whilst McGarble was gone. Is that classy? My man's like, let's make sure he's all right. But what is it? It's a human emotion. So when Ben won, he's like, yes, because he needed to release that. You're not gonna contain yourself saying, no, I'm gonna do it. I remember when I won the world title, I wanted to stand there when I'm done, like Eric Cantona on the ring, like a bad man. What did I do? I dropped to my knees, started crying. It's human emotion. And so you can't blame people for just being people.
I agree. And if anything, he almost got slapped in the chops for his trouble, which to me is more of a crossing of the line than anything you could say to the guy.
You saw these guys hug each other in the ring afterwards. You saw them hug each other in the press conference afterwards. And it was a public matter that made it more than what it was. And unfortunate. And it wasn't until the next day when people saw replay of, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. And people are very unforgiving when people are just being people. You know, and that's where the problem is.
I'm going to take you to a fight that hasn't yet to be officially announced, but I think we all know it's coming, and I bet as soon as this fight's final bell rings, this thing is going to be out in the next 48 hours. We're going to get another undisputed heavyweight championship fight. It's going to be in London this time, at Wembley. I know we've talked about Dubois, we've talked about Usyk. It's the heavyweight rematch that some people think is just a redo of the first. But, Johnny, after all that's happened, after what we've seen, have you changed your opinion yet on what the outcome could potentially be?
All the time Usyk boxes you once, he beats you easily the second time. He showed it with Anthony Joshua, he showed it with Tyson Fury. He'll show it again with Danny Dubois. Danny Dubois has improved massively. But Usyk's like a computer, man. He's downloaded what he has to do. He knows what to expect. You should get him the first time. If you can't get him the first time, you ain't getting him the second time. He's too smart for all the current heavyweights out there that haven't got a boxing IQ. He exposes the current fighters out there that don't have boxing IQ. That's what he's doing. That's why he's left a trail of devastation behind him here in the UK. He's too smart for them all. And I think Don Charles is a great trainer. I think I love the success that Daniel has. But I think fighting Usyk again, I think, to me, I don't be surprised. I don't see it going the distance.
Lastly, I know we've got a big undercard, but we don't have time to talk about everything today. We'll get around to that throughout the week. But save the main event. Who emerges as a shining star on the undercard of this fight?
You know what? I'm curious, but you got Vidal Riley. boxing on the Undercard against, oh God, I forgot his name. I'll remember in a minute. So you got Vidal Riley. In his career, he's just been stop and start. Chris Bill and Smith, he's got another tough night going on there. You can look through all of them. I love the cruiserweights. I look at the cruiserweight. Chris Smith's a tough fighter, but he's just tough. He's got to put some brain and some seasoning on his fight. And if he does that with the toughness, he could be champion again. But he just needs some seasoning on his fight.
Is there any chance at all that we see Senior sneak into the building Saturday night?
No. If he goes to the fight on Saturday night, therefore he's contradicted himself. Why will anybody ever listen to him again? All the things he's said and done, I don't know how he could turn it around. So you'll watch the fight. Even if he said you won't, you'll watch the fight.
And we definitely be watching the fight, and we will turn up right in front of the lights and the cameras. You can't miss us.
All of the lights.
The entire week we'll be getting all the action, all the interviews. Top Man, Radio Rahim with Johnny Nelson.